She isn't
got the
close
call
till
out.
6, yeah.
Yeah,
She
that's
would
fine.
drive over here. Sometimes she brings Andrew.
That gives us a chance to do other stuff and then she can.
And the others, you know, they were coming last minute.
Okay, so I'll start, we'll go around this way. Jordan Tate.
All right, Kate.
Anna LaRose.
Donna Flood?
Ben Lowe. Tony Bollier.
Thank you everybody for being here. First thing on the agenda is to review and approve January minutes. Did I spell everybody's name right? They were a little bit more scant this time. I did include all of the action-based voting. And then I tried to give a description of everything, but if you feel that there needs to be some more on there.
We also had Bill Sylvester as a guest for the mayor's ad hoc. Kathy and Joe was here.
Thank you. Other than that, do we feel good to approve?
First of all,
Second.
All in favor? Okay, moving on, public comment, guest visitors. We don't have any right now. We might in a little bit, should be, so we'll postpone that one. Work in progress, the Bates study.
it's, fine.
And that's gonna be like a student, is that gonna be an entire class or is that like a small group of students capstone project?
It's a team of three.
Okay.
And essentially, they were thinking of coming tonight, but basically, there's a break week, so that,
Right.
so they'll be here probably next month. And is there, they will be making would like to make a public presentation, I assume similar to the Barker Mill presentation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And is there any, probably April, preferably ahead of finals. Finals are the week of our regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any flexibility in that?
Yeah, I'm sure we could adjust our meeting schedule. It's far enough in advance, I think we could.
I'm open, you know, as long as we know ahead of time.
Yeah, if we can figure it out.
Is it better to have it on a Tuesday or some other date? Or?
We'll see what's available for Tuesdays, just to keep it consistent. And if Tuesday doesn't work for most people, then we can try another day. But we'll see if a Tuesday's open and
You have a
make sure that we
conflict?
can get a room. This room.
It's really hard to say.
No more than Tuesday.
He's like, I'm working my butt off trying to get this going.
So yeah, I'd say we'll try and set it, we'll try and figure out the date a month ahead of time, that way it gives us enough time to get a room and everything. Also, along the Bates study, that you said they'll be for, I think in the proposal, they're gonna be coordinating with Rosemary, right?
Basically, I think, Chris Carson expects to be here basically to give you a more precise update, but basically a lot of it will be in the form of maps.
Yep.
And
Because I actually reached out to Rosemary to get the zoning shapefile for the city of Auburn, and she was very nice, gave so much information. And she said, you know, I told her I just wanted to look at it for my own personal use, do a little bit of resource ID like I do just in my job. But there's been some maps created by other departments in terms of like parcels and frontage and stuff, and she just wants to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel. If there's information that they already have created to coordinate with, and then, you know, just being wary about, as someone from the city of Auburn, posting other numbers that haven't gone through them yet. But if it's the big students, then, you know, it wouldn't be coming from an organization within the city of Auburn. So I would say just coordinate with her, since they've already done some work. They've had some different departments coming up with different numbers, so she just wants everything to, you know, be consistent, make sure they're following the same protocols for GIS and all that. But yeah, she's very willing to help. She likes that we reached out. You know, I asked her if we had other conservation stuff that relates to GIS, if we could coordinate, and she was very open to that. So that would just be my recommendation.
From a mapping standpoint, in the archives, do the city ones go back as far as SCS or not?
That I don't know. I I just was, from her, all I got was existing stuff, current stuff. I just needed the zoning, shapefile so that I could, like, figure out the amount acres of wetlands in the ag zone, ag resource zone, like acres of deer winter areas, that stuff I was looking at. I wasn't really looking at parcel stuff, so I don't know how far back the GIS stuff goes, so yeah, I'm not too certain how.
Because I know that SCS goes back into the 50s, and I'm not sure it's beyond that or not.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
between the two,
Sounds like it'd be a good.
Rosemary did a
opportunity for that.
really darn good job pulling like every shred of evidence for the city of Auburn and trying to do these overlay maps. She's
Yeah.
got them all coordinated, but please spend time in there and see if there's something missing that you can find, because she'd be more than willing to
you know,
She's
add more layers. And this
very
is
helpful, very much.
They
so
do.
important when we're talking about like some of these meetings on where's the soil, where's the ag zone, where's the new development, where's the, you know, and you can literally, it's getting all layered.
Cause
It's
I've
just
layered that
amazing.
stuff, but like not in
She's
relation to
really,
parcels or anything like that. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out basic acreage of these natural resources that, from what I feel, or that I haven't been presented with, haven't looked at yet. So I just wanna know for myself, but I'm not trying to like publish numbers for the conservation commission or anything.
Just look
like
and
that.
see if it's in there, and if you find something, let me know.
You know, basically, I think the numbers would help Bates out. Because it's my understanding that basically, you know, that they're gonna do overlays of, you know, picking up the, what the original zones were, and then as changes have been made.
Yeah, I think that's what's unique about the Bates study is that they're looking at how it's evolved. Like you said, in that gap of time that we don't have covered. Whereas, I don't think that's been done yet that I know of.
Right.
So, we'll, if they need me to get in touch with Rosemary and help them get information, I can do that.
And, you know, probably, and I'm not trying to pass the buck, but basically, you know, you're more familiar with what's where. And you mind, if you haven't a chance, check with Jody to see whether she's been in contact, or what contact she's had with Rosemary, so that if we can get that linked up, we can be certain, you know,
Okay.
what's where.
Yeah, I can send them.
Come on in.
So that's what we have right now for the faith study update. Any other work in progress that I missed? That like big
On
ongoing
that,
stuff?
or on the communication, or
Yeah,
any other stuff?
yeah, I don't know what's been going on with other stuff, so if there's other stuff that's been ongoing since last month, feel free to include it here in the work in progress. But I just didn't really see anything immediately in my emails that I wanted to include there, so is there stuff to update on the communications work group?
Well, the communications work group, so we sent that thing out, and Maurice reached out to Liz, which incidentally, I had the day off and I was over here. So I stopped in her office, not even realizing that email had gone out, to go talk to her. And she's like, yeah, I just sent a reply. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? She's like, well, Maurice sent this thing, and I said, oh. I said, we must be all on the same page. So I actually talked with her in person for about 45 minutes, and it seems like it is gonna be hard to run a Facebook page. I mean, there is a lot to it. So, you know, you gotta manage people when they start badgering. I mean, you gotta be right on top of that, and I'm already managing, I don't know how many.
It's a lot of
pages.
extra liability.
It is a lot of liability. Liz was very supportive. She said, just think about it, you know, if you change your mind, you know, we can always revisit this. She was more than willing. She would love to post anything we have on the Auburn website. Anything with forest board, anything with the agricultural, we're doing a lot of food stuff. There's a lot of food insecurity, so we're talking about local farming, things like that. So anytime we have a workshop or any of that stuff, she wants to post it. She doesn't mind because she's already wrapped up in that. The other thing is we're not competing for more people. It's like, okay, so
Right.
you like this page, and you're following this page, and you're following this page, and you're following
We
this
already
page.
have an immediate audience if we just go through there.
Yeah, because if we start over, we're gonna have to work our way into touching all those people to get them involved. So
So-
it might be better just to stick with the city right now.
And is this a work group, right, the
No.
communications, or is
not really, we kind of talked about forming a work group, communication stuff.
I almost think that,
So it's more informal.
I would kind of table it, like, let's keep talking about it a little bit.
yeah,
on the
I think
site,
it'd be
but-
better to table it till fall, maybe, and,
So one thing I actually have a new business that I think this would pair really well with is I want to kind of mimic Forestry Board and that they have a strategic plan.
Mhm.
Theirs is, I think, 5 to 10 years in terms of how far out they're planning. I would like to do maybe a little bit shorter, like a 2-year time frame or something, since it's our first one. But I'd like to create a strategic plan for at least 2020, focusing kind of like what are the big objectives that we want to tackle, and then maybe creating proactive communication strategies, like, you know, every week we send something to Liz that she can post related to conservation. It could be a fact, it could be an event, it could be, you know, just a little snippet of other stuff going on. So I think tabling it is fine, but I'd like to maybe enroll the communications aspect into the strategic plan, just kind of help.
No, I think that's a good idea.
We can talk a little bit more about that. I just wasn't, thank you for giving the update, because I had kind of loosely followed all of that going on. But it sounds like we want to just work communication through their pages. Very nice.
you know, it looks like it's gonna be a fairly busy spring and summer anyway, so I almost think that, you know, if we wait closer to fall.
Yep.
I mean,
And I think it's good, I mean, we could still keep thinking about forming a work group, even if our work group doesn't have an independent Facebook page or,
Oh, I
media
definitely think
site.
that's something where we could do. They could be in charge of developing these communication
Yeah.
strategies for the strategic plan and, you know, any kind of.
And parks too,
drafting.
you know, Tiz has got stuff, you know, it's the same thing with parks and trying to promote that, so I don't mind. I think Tiz has an interest in communications,
Yeah.
to say the least, and I don't mind trying to keep that in the front of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't wanna assume the communications role yet, but I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't wanna lose sight of this, but I think tabling.
Yeah, I think, you know,
An
I
official
think
work
there are
group
gonna be,
maybe, but-
you know, so many other competing, you know, things this summer, and summer we also have personal interests and that sort of thing.
We got Arbor Days
So-
coming up,
Yeah,
it's a
whatever
lot.
ideas you or anyone else has about communication, and if you want to just brainstorm and like jot notes down on a Word doc, send it to me and I could create a folder for it in Google Drive. That way we have all of it stored in one place. And when we're ready to look at it a little bit more formally, we can just pull up all that stuff and see, you know, go from there. But yeah, you don't have to wait. If you have ideas, feel free to send them to me and I'll see them in the Google Drive.
But I think, you know, with some of the frustrations that John has run into, I think, you know, we need to put some thought into how best to address it and, you know, meet those challenges.
Mhm. Definitely.
So moving on to the work completed, there's definitely been a lot going on in terms of subcommittee work. But pretty much from the Conservation Commission standpoint, we did address, we sent a second letter of concern to City Council, MAGARP, the Mayor's Office, and then all of the Conservation Commissioners received it as well. I think that was January 22nd, and Josie from the County
MGS.
Soil and Water District, yep. She had sent a letter as well. She did get a response from
Holly.
Councilor Holly, that she was going to at least bring it to the attention of the group at the meeting. I didn't get a response, which was a little disheartening, but again, I don't know, maybe I'm going to junk mail or something. I'm not exactly sure. So hopefully we can work on just.
Neither one of those letters were brought up during the meetings.
It was really nice that Josie was.
And they weren't brought up during the council meetings either, so I'm just saying.
Well, maybe I'll have to go and see them at one of the meetings. But, well, future meetings if there are any.
And-
I don't think it's a lost cause, I do believe that they read it.
I think they did too. I mean, I'm sure they get bombarded with stuff and, you know, I'm not asking to be top priority, but I would just like at least verification that it was received. That's all I want to work on establishing. And I think the more that we present ourselves, the more recognition that we'll get. And I think it's probably just a matter of kind of building a reputation and relationships with other parts of the city government. So hopefully this week, we'll just get the oil. Just keep sending letters. So that's what I have for work completed. As far as subcommittee updates go, Tiz is not here to update parks. I think she sent a small little recap. Let me try and get that from her. She said that they were having issues again with their vacancies. Again, parks doesn't have actual limited positions, but she said they've had issues with they're not getting their post on the city website for recruitment. But it sounds like
I didn't see it up today either.
It sounds like because someone's been out in the IT department, they might be a little bit backlogged, so I can respond to her with that.
I did notice, like, when they have that volunteer meeting, they list all the committees, but I think some of these committees, they come underneath us, and they're not,
So they're not posted directly on the.
right, because I think you have to come through here or something, I'm not
Well,
really
today
sure.
when they posted, it said we had 4 openings on Conservation Commission. And I think what they've done is
Oh.
they've taken the 1 that we have open and the 3 that are coming
Up for
up.
reappointment, because technically we could be not reappointed,
Yeah.
which I really hope doesn't happen. But, so Tiz said, Missy Edgecombe, the chair, has resigned from Parks. Her husband Keith will join the committee but isn't ready to be chair. I'm the only other regular member who attends. I've done nearly 2 years as chair. She doesn't want to be chair again, so they're hoping to get some recruitment. They've updated the list today looking for volunteers, but again, Park wasn't mentioned, she just said. So hopefully, we can just give another reminder, see if they can just post, or maybe even go through Liz on the social media pages if they can't get it up on, Parks, since they're a subcommittee of us, maybe they do have to go through Conservation Commission, but if you do your social media posts, maybe that'll help bring a little bit more immediate attention to the vacancies they have there. So I'm going to make a note to myself to contact Liz about
That's a great idea.
a social media post for the vacancies, or just recruitment
For
for Parks.
board too, yeah.
So, other subcommittee updates, I don't know if did I keep LA Trails in there? Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, Mike.
Well, LA Trails, yes, because it's still technically kind of a work group, but it's kind of
tabled
right
for a
now,
year.
me and Ben are morphing into like a project with another.
Yeah, and there's some other news there too. So there's the Mount Appetite
Yeah,
Trails work group. Do you want to talk about that?
well, we can, but we probably should talk about forest board first.
Oh, yeah.
Or we can batch.
Let it be this
Just
one.
keep going, just go.
Okay.
We'll backtrack.
All right. So I connected with Doug Reed, who used to be with the city of Auburn and is now in the city of Lewiston, and he's working on essentially doing the same thing. And as I talked about last month, ALT had kind of backed off. They just have other priorities right now. So that's kind of perfect. And I passed him all the contact info from the work last year, and also informed him about the Mount Appetite Trails
Nice.
group, because I think he could springboard into a bigger Lewiston Auburn Trails,
Yeah,
whatever it becomes. So he's kind of taking the lead on that, and I offered to assist on behalf of the Conservation Commission, if that's okay with everybody. And we'll see where that goes. He's gathering names and hoping to start getting people together in person sometime in March.
awesome.
Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, because whenever LA Trails can, kind of re-engage with their work, it can just morph into that, but no reason to not focus on it now.
That's right. And he's also on the board of the Androscoggin Land Trust.
Oh, okay, so that's a really
That's
good
So
fine.
he's really trying to just do LA Trail, to get LA Trails going again. Whether it ends up being under the umbrella of ALT or not.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's good,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great.
Whatever you can do on behalf of the Conservation Commission for that, we really appreciate. It doesn't have to be in any formal capacity, as a, champion, like we call the work group, but
Yeah.
whatever you can, do for that group, and then just report back, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Sweet, it's always better to have more heads on the scene.
Yeah.
And then the Mount Appetite stuff, we're talking about signage. And as you know, I asked for some feedback here for sport and some other groups, and we're trying to really, we wanna develop, I think it's a good idea to develop a best management practice or a best practice on signage. Because everybody wants to put signage up, and we have signage on trails that are going up now, that have already been up, same with Lewiston and Auburn. Should they be the same, should they not? You know, where do we post them? What kind of trees are we gonna post them on, or stumpage, or posts, or where the recommendations in every group that I've been through has their own, you shouldn't, or you should, ideas. And we are gonna talk about that, actually next Tuesday is our next meeting, the 26th, about the signage. The signage that I had sent around was from the mountain bikers guys. They did a really fabulous job. And they're going to be on tin plates, but they'll have the ability of putting new stickers up, so they can change that at any time. But once we have the post up, if it's on a tree, it's gonna be on a tree. If it's on the ground, it's on the ground. And there's ups and downs to both.
Right.
The one thing we kept talking about is making sure that they're not on, like, you know, endangered species or trees of valuable, you know, we wanna make sure if we have the
Right.
option and you have 6 trees there, please don't put it on, you know, the only large elm tree in this area.
Right.
Not that they're gonna really harm most trees, most signage when you go to like the Appalachian Trail and stuff, they're nailed in trees.
Right.
You know,
I
posts
think
get
a
kicked over,
BMP
kids
for
are
signage would be great.
vandalizing stuff, so there's a lot to think about, but maybe we should have some kind of direction.
Yeah, I think developing a BMP for that would be great. And there's many different levels of scope you could go with that in terms of, you know, what existing signage you can review, where you're gonna get your sources from. Do you wanna mimic stuff like, you know, does the state have a template for BMPs, or maybe like NEMBA has, you know, certain
Yeah.
signage BMPs they have. So, you know, I'm really down for whatever kind of research wants to be done for it. I think it's a great idea. And, you know, could definitely play into the trails group that's kind of coming up. So any ideas? I think I'd be supportive of that.
Portland Trails is a really good model there because their trails are lots of different landowners and
Mhm.
multiple uses, but the Portland Trails organization just helps coordinate all of the marketing and signage
Yeah.
and all of that, so all the Portland trails are uniform, even if they belong to the Auburn Society or the city of Portland or whoever.
Do they have a contact or a written document? 'Cause that's the thing, we've gone around and around and we can't really find any management practice. Like, a lot of it is just hearsay. They have a group and they're all on the same page and we're gonna do it this way. But to
There-
find a really written.
I talked to somebody from there last year, and I can't remember her name, but there is contact info on their webpage, and that's how I got
Okay,
it up.
let me try to see if we can find some of that. If you find something in the meantime, let me know. Before Tuesday's meeting, before next Tuesday's meeting.
Again, I would say, only because I've recently gotten into this with my own job, GIS, there's a lot that goes into making a GIS figure in terms of the color of the outline, the distance,
Mhm.
the size.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I would say, reach out to Rosemary and see what kind of advice she could give you in terms of making graphics at least. Like, she might have a little bit to contribute on that, if like City of Auburn does any standard colors or, you know, standard logos.
Well, there isn't any, that's the thing, there aren't any. We've done all that research.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah, maybe she would know, but if you've already.
So,
looked into that.
you know, NEMBA, they have standard trail systems for the biking piece.
Right.
So depending on the grade of the trail, like how hard it is, you know, whether it's an
Gotcha.
easy, moderate, and most of it right now is just blue. It's
Mhm.
kind of in the moderate zone. But this is multi-use trails, so
Yeah.
the other thing is you look at, if it's a hiker, it's gonna be completely different.
Right.
You know, if it's, I don't know, mountains, it's very different.
Mhm.
So there are state type of standards, and
Yeah.
should we adopt those? Yes. But like the signage piece, I think it's not so much, should it be a blue square, because we can figure that out. That state's got all this, how much grade, how much elevation, how many feet, blah, blah, blah. It's, where are we gonna post them?
Gotcha.
So if we're using wood posts, it's fine. Do we wanna nail them to a tree? Do we wanna use specific nails? Do we want them nailed
And if you're
in
gonna make one
3
post,
inches, 6
what height,
inches?
how far off the trail?
How big of a tree? If it's a tree of significant, interest, look at maple trees, tapping. I don't know if Kathy taps, but I tap maple trees. You wanna make sure your trees are good 10 to 14 inches. If it's 10 and less, you can kill the tree by tapping the tree. So we wanna make sure that we're just kinda selective on
Okay,
where
yeah.
we're putting them. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that we're missing is where and how.
Yeah, Portland Trail.
Not so
that
much
might be
what the
good,
signage is
or-
the placement.
Right.
That's the missing piece.
Okay, well, if you, or do you wanna tackle looking into like, looking at this more, maybe finding other examples or looking into who we
Yeah.
contact and then report back next meeting, or do
There's
you need
one,
assistance?
um,
Do you
is
need
it
me to do
Lindsay?
anything?
One of the towns has a little bit of something, but most of what we're looking at is this thick document that New York, the state of New York has like, boom, boom, boom. This color, this grade, nail it to this type of tree, this type of nail, made out of this type of metal, and I don't know if we wanna parent that or just kinda, but
Yeah, I mean, if you
That's
wanna send it
part of
around to the group and we can like take a look.
I think if Portland Trails is doing something, it would be pretty significant just to kind of adopt, if they have something like
Yeah,
that.
maybe.
Okay, well, thank you for.
Both from the standpoint of the forest board, the trails group, ours group, I'd like to give you every bit of encouragement I could. But I would suggest you may not want to plan too far down the road until you know what's going to occur as far as the mayors are concerned, because basically, if houses are a factor, that may throw a monkey wrench in some of your plans. So you might want to make your plans good, keep your enthusiasm up, but be very watchful as to what may or may not occur if it's residential related, because that could impact a lot of your trails, a lot of your signs, a lot of your forest work and that sort of thing. So anyway, I don't want to discourage you at all, but on the other hand, realistically, I hate to see good work go to waste too.
I think we're just really looking at getting signage up. I mean, all these trails, it's hard. People get lost in these places. They don't want to go to Mount Appetite because they get lost.
Mount Appetite, the red trail and the blue trail intersect so many times.
Yeah, and they're not blazed very well. They gotta be
I have to keep
re-blazed.
track. I'm like, okay, I crossed this many times, this way and then loop back. Yeah, it would be very disorienting.
And then, ALT put up some gorgeous signage behind Shore Heights, so we've got that going. So there's another type of signage going, which is wooden. And then the stuff which is gonna be tin. So now that we're getting trails labeled, and there's no reason why we can't just put a new sign there. We're at least getting them where they should be and what it's a work in progress.
But there are a lot of private landowners that basically are, welcome hikers and that sort of thing, but, and probably, a lot of it with non-sign. But, at this point, it's a little hard to make long-range plans. I wouldn't encourage it until you do resolve some of these other
Mhm.
issues.
Well, that seems like a good segue for our next, well, so does that cover LA?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then we can segue into the subcommittee update for the ad hoc group.
Or go back to Forest Board real quick.
Back towards.
Yeah, well, we didn't really do
Yeah, why
Forest
don't you
Board.
do
we
Forest
skipped it.
Board?
Oh, well, that's what I was just asking, if it covered LACFD.
So, yeah, we didn't have a meeting because snow and all of that stuff, but then we had one that was rescheduled, which was our January meeting. So we've had a meeting before, right? That you missed. But that was the
Yeah.
one we had to reschedule the next week, because when I brought it up, Rick's like, oh shoot, I wasn't prepared, so we ended up meeting the following.
Yeah,
January.
when it was rescheduled, I couldn't make that because I had a networking event.
So January, we talked about the brown-tailed moth workshop, which we ended up having, and again, we had a snowstorm coming up, so we scheduled that the week after. It was actually really successful, and it was more successful than our last ones with our best management practice for our forestry staff. We probably had, I don't know, 60, almost 70 people in there. Not even kidding. People were standing up.
We should do it again then.
Yes.
So there is a lot going on with invasive critters, I'm gonna say, in a whole, because it's not just the caterpillars, you know, we're talking about, you know, certain, like the marmorated stink bugs, an issue right now, and we're talking about, anyway, different invasive species. So the state's been doing a lot of stuff all over, and the brown-tailed moth continues to be a very big problem right here in Androscoggin County, which when they brought the maps up and we had the district guys come down, we kept saying, well, this is Lewiston, this is Auburn, and you don't even have them in the red, but we can tell you right now, boom, boom, boom. Most of the people in the room were either working for both cities, sitting on forest board, they were landowners, they were in agricultural, and they were like, yeah, man, you gotta update your maps, because this is how quick this is spread. So I think they're planning on doing another like public thing right here in town. But the significance of brown-tailed moth is we really wanna like nip this now, because it's winter. And actually, yeah, why don't you just pass those down so that Kathy can have one too, if you care.
Yeah, you can see them right now.
Yeah, so you can see them right now, and it's been kind of interesting, you know, my normal day job here, I've been walking around a lot, looking at the crowns of trees after having this conversation, because there are places I never even looked for them, and after that whole meeting, I was like, wow, you're talking, it's out on the Goddard Road in Lewiston, so now every time I'm in it, I'm like, oh my God, it really is out here,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even realize.
Once you kind of talk about it, you see it everywhere.
So they brought in like all the different stages too, to show people what the difference is and how to clip them. But you know, the problem is brown tails like to build their nests up in the canopy. And people, even when you have pole saws and pole clippers, I mean, even the massive ones that go up 40 or so feet, you still can't get to the ground, so you can't get to some of these trees. So some of these trees have to be taken down. That's the only way you're gonna get there. And then the other thing is, like he says, they were working on all these projects in Brunswick and up by Wolf's Neck State Park and stuff. And they showed examples on how they've been trying to manage it. Sometimes they come in with a bucket loader and a pole, so they get up even higher. It's really about managing. You're never gonna eradicate. So now I'm looking, here's my public health nurse hat on, and there was a public health nurse there from the state. We got a chance to talk quite a bit, and it's really gotten to the point where we gotta get to public education now.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like so much more beyond now. We've exhausted nipping it in the butt with conservation and forestry throughout the state, as well as the other moths and other critters. And I think this is really, these guys, I saw over this summer that just passed, probably 47 of my patients came in just covered in this classic rash. And every one of them came in, oh my God, Rhiannon, I get the worst poison ivy in the whole world. Just look at that, that's not poison ivy.
Yeah, I've had it 3 times, and because I worked at Wolf's Neck State Park,
Yeah,
and
it's miserable.
we had to do just like regular picking up of branches that fall down in windstorms, and yeah, I had a whole body rash 3 times that one summer, and it can also cause respiratory issues too, and in a
So,
smaller percentage of
I
people.
have some properties that I take care of down on the forest side, and they're having Bartlett tree experts come in and do
Yeah.
systemic
Yeah.
on their trees.
So they
It's
talked about
expensive.
management. The best thing is to clip them. Either burn them if you can. It's actually the best idea is to
Yeah.
burn them if you can. If you're in city limits, you can't be having bonfires usually in the middle of your lawn. But yeah, I know. And it depends on how bad it is. If you're clipping a small trash bag worth, you might be able to take that trash bag worth and douse it into some soapy water, which is what they suggest. Just let it soak. Soapy water will get to the nest, because the nest is waterproof. That's why it winters over. The soap will break that water surface and it will drown them. They'll die. But if you're dealing with large amounts or the branches are very large, you can't be shoving all that in a trash bag and then downing it. And then what do you do with the soapy water? You're gonna dump that down the drain? You're gonna pour that on your lawn? So burning it really is best. If you can't do that, they inject trees too, and they're injecting trees for other critters. So we talk about, emerald ash borers and all these other things, the Asian beetles that are coming up. But injecting the tree can kill the tree. It's using a lot of toxic chemicals. You've got to drill holes through the whole entire tree trunk. It takes time. And you really got to catch them at a whole nother, not in the winter, you've got to catch them when the little caterpillars have crawled up. So each season and each month throughout the year is a different type of treatment to contain these things. In the winter right now, we're looking at clipping them, burning
It's
them.
more containment thing.
Yeah, and they're easy to see because there are leaves on trees that just, I don't know, I call them lazy leaves, they just don't want to fall. They're just up there, and that doesn't mean it's a nest, but if you see the crown of a tree and it's got multiple leaves that are curled, even if they're 60 feet up and you can't see them, but you can see all these curled leaves, that should be really suspicious of brown-tailed moths, because that's what they do. And so it's tough. So right now, that management piece is going on. That injection system is pretty slick. They've treated trees like that. In other cases, they've just cut the whole tree down, which is sad. And it depends on the type of year. But these little spines, even if you squash them on your lawn, these spines are toxic for up to 3 years, even more. And a lot of times people get into these rashes and they have never seen the caterpillar. They have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea at all. So I'm gonna say 90% of the time.
So then this would be a good, we don't have to wait till fall, but
No,
this
I
would be a
think,
good thing to contact Liz about just sending a post
Yeah.
on social media. Keep out, an eye out for these guys in spring, where are they most likely to be found, and what can we do to prevent, or how can you identify a rash, maybe something along those lines would be good.
yeah.
Anything else for LACFP? in terms of-
We've got, so our meeting is Thursday. Our plan is, again, like Jordan says, is the strategic plan, is a 5-year plan. And we're working on, it's up to 2020. So we're working on looking at our next 5-year plan. And we reviewed at that meeting the basics of what we had in our strategic plan, and we basically accomplished all of it. So we want to continue that. Some of those plans were things like when we run our Arbor Day week and how successful that's been, and trying to do some outreach like with this and with the best management practice and stuff like that. So our little tree nursery, that's doing really well. So I think we're going to mirror image most of the same strategic plan moving forward. Thursday we'll talk about that. So if anybody's got community tree related questions, concerns, or things they'd like to see the board do, now's the time to kind of bring it up. You can always email me later if something comes to you. And it doesn't have to be by Thursday for this meeting, because it's going to be an ongoing process. Yeah. It'd be nice to include.
I would hope that basically that some dialogue can emerge. We've got commercial forest, we've got inland forest, we've got suburban. And the suburban component is forgotten. Now, can the forest board contribute? I would hate to see another independent group, because we have too many groups now anyway.
Well,
But-
I know, and it's tough, and because it's a group that works with Lewiston, it's very much tied to what they do
But
too.
with Doug Green's interest in trails and that sort of thing, can't we
I think there's area-
establish a dialogue with Lewiston to see that they should have a similar interest?
I definitely think that there's room to incorporate suburban forest into LACFB in the sense of, like, I know that Lewiston has that impervious surface issue or whatever, where if you can like reduce the amount of impervious surface on your lawn.
Yeah.
They have certain programs for that, in which case, maybe planting a tree would help or something like that. So I think there's room in terms of home ownership and education in that front. I don't know about anything in terms of policies that they would be able to do, but I think at least in outreach and education, there's room to work with residential, homeowners
But, you know, at least here in Auburn, once you get outside the urban core, most of the original plots of land were a rectangular plot that basically included a residence and then maybe a field and then some woodland. And essentially, those lots have continued, and whether residential or what have you, a high percentage of the suburban and residential and rural residential homeowners basically have from just 1 or 2 to 10 or 20 acres of forest, and essentially they're sort of lost in the middle, and really a tremendous amount of total acres are in those split zone groups or whatever.
I think we definitely need to expand it too, because I'm with you, and I've talked with Bill Sylvester, and I talked with Rick about that. But because it's the community forest, they only focusing really on community forest, so we're looking at like,
Publicly owned.
yeah, publicly owned, and tree canopy and things like that, but there's no reason why I can't keep expanding to that, but I'm almost thinking that whole forestry section, forestry management, again, Bill Sylvester, very knowledgeable about that. I see if we can get that agricultural group going, that there would be a forest component, so that it's looking at the larger picture of all of Auburn. Because the community forest board is so few and far between too, there's only so many. And because half of them really are city workers, we're always focused on, oh yeah, this tree fell down, or we get this stuff here, so we're always gonna get sucked back into community trees.
But, you know, this.
Nobody's gonna keep thinking outside the box. I almost think that we need that as part of the
You
agricultural.
know, for example, the state's tree growth current use law, but basically, anyone with 10 acres or more can actually participate in that program. So if you just think in terms of that segment, maybe 10, 15 acres, you know, they aren't really a part of any formal management system, but yet collectively, they could be.
Yeah.
And actually, they could also be an asset to some of your trails groups and all of those other things. And SCS basically has some funding basically for the small forest owners too. So but just, they're almost being overlooked and not being paid any attention to, but there's a significant number of both people and acreage that I think could contribute in many ways, a lot more than it is right
I
now.
think it's worth at least bringing up as maybe one of the 5-year goals for the strategic plan is to start
Reach out more in the
incorporating.
community.
We'll bring it up on Thursday.
Yeah.
And also, you know, if you're visiting with Doug Green, possibly he can visit with some of the Lewiston contributors, and, you know, particularly when Dave Griswold was there, there was just a tremendous resource of knowledge there that
I know,
could be utilized.
It's gone.
Yeah, he's gone, so basically, I think you ought to work harder to get it. I think, I got the feeling in reading his resignation letter that basically he was open to contributing at some point to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, he is. He's had a lot of family stuff going on.
Yeah.
He just needs time to be able to do
Right,
his
so
thing.
I think, you know,
Yeah.
don't want to forget that. It should, but I really think that suburban component probably needs some interest from both directions.
Thank you. Okay, so now we can move on to
The hot topic.
the ad hoc group.
Kathy, you want to report?
So, I don't know what to say. I don't know if it is going to be presented at this council meeting on Monday night. My total intuitive feeling of this is that this new zoning proposal is going to create nothing but another residential zone. It does essentially nothing for agriculture, forestry, or conservation. No matter how many times we've tried to push for more discussion on those issues, nothing. It's just, it's not even acknowledged, really, to be honest with you. And the few points that we have been able to get across have been tabled. So we're going to try and formulate an alternative plan to present at the same time. We have been in touch with various agencies of the state expressing our concern. So my understanding now is that it's going to be presented in a workshop form to City Council, and then it's going to go to City Council
That's Monday.
on Monday. As far as we know, we don't know any different right now. If the City Council approves it, then that plan is submitted to the planning board, and I don't know, is this group supposed to weigh in on?
Originally,
It's,
yes, but it was interesting, because the last two meetings, that was not.
Yeah, they
in
said
the
once
conversation.
it's been voted on by the MAGRP, it's supposed to go to the planning board and Conservation Commission for review
Before
before it's
council.
voted on.
Okay, I have no idea procedurally whether that's gonna happen.
I'll review
And
the language again.
also, because it's a mayor's appointed committee, there doesn't have to be a vote, and there wasn't a vote. It wasn't even consensus. It was, this is what we're looking at, we're gonna go through this, and this is going forward.
So on Monday is the workshop or Monday's the vote? Did it already happen?
Two, workshop prior
On
to
the
the
same
city
evening?
council.
Was that normal for them?
Yes,
Okay.
they always have some sort of workshop. I do believe now, whether it's ever happens before every city council meeting or not, it gives the city councilors an opportunity to talk about what's on the agenda and get them maybe a little clearer in their mind what is actually going to be discussed at the city council level, official.
Okay.
Public can't comment,
And that's this Monday?
correct.
Okay.
Now, as far as we know,
At the workshop.
public can't comment at the workshop, they can comment in open session at the regular city council meeting.
And Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally the workshop is from 5:30 to 7,
Yeah.
and the open council meetings from 7 to 8:30.
That's at 5.
The workshop.
That's,
And I think there's usually like a 15-minute break between the workshop and the actual meeting. Or from
Um, So we, I'm really discouraged. I'm not discouraged, that's not the right word. I'm disgusted that we were presented with something, really, any discussion that we were supposed to have on it a week ago, it didn't really matter. It wasn't important. It wasn't relevant. Nothing was enacted on it at all, right? We were just, this is it, we're gonna go through it, and then we were done. Didn't ask for any motions, every time I brought up something, Maurice brought up something, somebody else, maybe we'll get to that. We're gonna table that for right now,
Yeah,
but keep moving on.
and then there was no votes.
No votes.
And then I remember in the meeting, he said twice, we already discussed this, we've already voted on that. But when you go back, that was never voted on.
I
So
think
the
it was-
original thought, the original plan is what's going to the workshop, whatever those numbers were before, is the same that, what it was, 10,000,
The 3
3 acres and the,
Yeah, and the
1,000,
1,000.
And the 1,000, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think there were, throughout the process, basically, through the series of meetings, basically, it was suggested that we discuss a certain topic and hopefully put that aside, then we did the next one, the next one, the next one. And I know several of us, myself included, basically, at times, just voted to continue without supporting the actual content, but assuming, and I felt we've been the understanding that basically once these steps are put together, we have an opportunity to look at and discuss the whole thing to see how it fits together and see whether what. None of that ever occurred.
The only, if you go back to the very first, because I watched them all again, the only one that was actually voted and agreed by the majority was that first one, the 14660, which was the purpose. It was the only one that was ever finalized, voted, we're good with this, we don't need to change anything else.
And what
Every
we-
other meeting, the other ones kept changing, definitions were changing, yay or nay. Well, we're gonna go back to the 1,000, well, we're gonna have, now you have to have A, B, and C, well, wait a minute, A, B, C, and D, oh, wait, E. Well, we need to make sure this is okay. Boundaries, road frontage, everything kept moving, so nothing was ever, besides that original purpose, voted on against.
And honestly, this whole new
Consensus.
document
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the mission statement or the original purpose. It really doesn't.
And that mission is, purpose has been read at every single meeting, even Barbara read it once too, even. I think it's important because that purpose is the whole reason why that entire ordinance exists.
It also has nothing, nothing in common with our strategic plan
Yeah.
either. It's completely divergent. So personally, all along, I've felt we've kind of backed into this the wrong way, that we have attacked and created a convoluted document that it just opens up all of this land for potential development.
And, you know, just from an informational standpoint, it doesn't have any great significance, but when the council authorized the mayor to go ahead and do this, basically, it was suggested that they, you know, there'd be 7 people appointed, residents of Auburn, and certain other criteria, and that roughly 2 things might be for the 10 acre and the 50% would be the focus. We've ended up with the neighbors committee. One of the key people is a non-resident. But, you know, it's different than the council really authorized or agreed to, but basically the mayor has the prerogative to make those changes. But I think you should be aware that those changes have occurred.
And I hear over and over from everything, from the original studies to the temporary committee that was in existence to the mayor's ad hoc committee, that the one consistency was form this agricultural commission or board, whatever you want to call it, define it, and then move forward. And again, I hear that out of these. And that is the one thing that has been consistent for the last 2 years that I don't see still happening.
No, they want to make the changes to the ordinance without forming a.
First, without forming a committee. And then what, if it's a committee versus a board, what authority will they have? Are they gonna just be an advisor? Are they gonna formulate or type up a formal plan for the board to review to say yay or nay? When exceptions come up and things like
Well,
that.
why don't you fill her in on the status of
Yeah.
Of the agricultural commission or board. So at the end of our meeting, it was agreed that we have another meeting to discuss that.
Yeah.
And we have received no communication from anyone whatsoever. They were supposed
But
to-
actually, he assigned that to the 2 councilors
Right.
to have that, to lead that.
Yeah.
And I've emailed Holly twice about it. Asked.
Do they ever do like a pro or con list, like if we do it this way, then this is gonna benefit Auburn by attracting new generation people or whatever? Do they ever look at that? So what's their idea behind this 3 acres? They think it's gonna increase the, I mean, to me,
So,
it's like,
the idea behind the 3 acres is to clean up all of the under compliant zones in the agricultural zone right now. So there are, I'm not sure the exact number, Maurice, 80 some odd,
Yeah,
3 acre
80 something.
lots, or 80
87 or something.
non-compliant lots that stand.
Between 3 and 10.
3 and 10, that are currently on the books right now. So what they're saying is, let's get those cleaned up and people able to farm or have some sort
Build
of
a house on
agriculture.
those.
Right. They don't believe that there will be 80 potential building sites because of soil restrictions, wetlands, whatever. We have never received that number of how many there actually could be.
Well, we've tried to get some soil conditions incorporated so that it would save, conserve some of the prime and
There could be no further building.
soils of statewide importance. That's,
That's
I'm
never
not,
listed.
I'm not sure that's going to occur.
In the last stats that I saw, there was only less than 3% left in the agricultural zone, which is 75% of the land, only 3% of it left that is prime soil. So if we put even one house on that prime soil, you've taken that out of agriculture.
When I was looking at GIS, and again, this is my numbers, my personal numbers, not reflective of Conservation Commission, but when I looked at the data, there's about 5,500 acres of prime or statewide significant farmland soils, there's 7,500 acres of wetlands, and there's 1,300 acres of deer wintering areas, and one significant burn pool, all within the Agriculture
That you
resource
found on the
protection.
map, yeah.
and that's like half an hour.
And that's just what you found on the maps.
Yeah, well, like I said, I had to clip the data. It's all statewide data. I didn't create any data. I just clipped it to what the ag resource protection zone is, and then those are the numbers that I got. And there's also farmland, so there's also farmland of local importance that is regulated in terms of like federal information, federal action. I think it might be regulated at the state level, but I just focus on the prime and statewide farmland soils.
That's a lot of land right there, that. And the thing is, planning board
But I don't know
doesn't
if they know that.
necessarily have that background.
This is what I've
Sometimes
been
I
asking for.
swear
I
they,
want to know if they know what's in the
Yeah.
zone. It's all
Yeah.
I've been asking for, and I've received no.
because the next thing you know,
responses.
you get somebody with a building project and they say, okay, great, so now this passes. And I want to put my home on my lot that's 4 acres and I want to put my house here and blah, blah, blah. And they come up with this plan and they have people come in, survey the land, whatever. Yeah, okay, so we can do that. The planning board's going to try to do their best with what information they have at the time, but a lot of times they might just pass it, not realizing, because there was no data overlaying, this soil, by the way, that you just okayed is prime soil.
I wish we could maybe answer some of your questions by with some projected impact information, but we haven't.
Yeah.
There has been no
Yeah.
projections provided at all as far as the impact is concerned. And I think that's an issue that you folks should consider basically, because basically if 40% of the land in Auburn is going to be affected, we should have some projections as to what the impact might be. Because basically in a subdivision or anything else, and that's a much smaller thing, there's a whole series of criteria of the projected impact, or basically on whether it be on wildlife or on soil and water or on name it. But we haven't had any of those impact projections provided at all. And I would hope that's the gap that they might consider before we're going too far, but it's never been discussed.
This group was not formed with that intent, Maurice. Now I firmly believe that.
Mhm.
I think it was, I
You do? My goodness.
I know, it's a revelation, isn't it?
Well, it just amazes me that, like, I don't know, like, Auburn seems to be like losing their population, and the people are not coming here, you know what I mean? And people that come here, I have been here like 10 years, probably are not gonna stay here. But it just amazes me that they don't come up with these plans and ideas where so we're all the same thing. You know what I mean? Make parks better so we can go and take our children to the parks, make them safe so we can do that. And then they're gonna do this stuff with land, it's gonna change the whole thing, and it's not gonna be a place that people wanna come or stay.
We've trying to stimulate some interest in cluster housing or co-housing, that sort of thing, which basically has been demonstrated time and time again to have an advantage because it reduces the footprint, and yet you can have a common large green area, and which is really attractive and it really is a lot more productive as far as the use of soil is concerned, because basically that green area can be, can be wetlands, it can be floodplain or whatever that can't be used for anything else, but it's just tremendous from the standpoint of green space and open space, but, and in conjunction with cluster housing and that sort of thing, it can be a win-win all the way around, but there hasn't been any interest at all in exploring that, at least within that, that particular group. But, hopefully, I think one of the sad things at this point is that more people aren't aware of what's going on, and if they were aware, I think it would be a somewhat different climate. But anyway, I think that's just an opinion. But as far as impact projections are concerned, I think I would hope that maybe this group might feel that they might have an interest in making at least a request for that type of data, because really the planning board, the conservation commission, should have that kind of data. None of Tony's work as basically a city engineer would move forward at all without some plans and some projections to work with. But I really don't want to participate in that discussion a lot more at this point, but I just want to bring it up for your consideration. But then, because of my position on the group, in the bank group, I prefer not to, be involved in the action if you should decide to take action.
I know, and it's super tough. I feel like a couple of things. One, we don't know if it's gonna be on the agenda. I keep looking. It hasn't been added yet. The minute it does get added, then we know.
But the projections
Two is, can we review the original document that we had when Jason came over and said we're forming mayor's ad hoc? We need one from conservation, we need one city councilor, we need 2 land. Where was that? Because that was actually laid out. Once it gets approved here,
Right.
we're gonna vote on it, it's gonna go to whatever, A, B, and C. I feel like that order keeps getting changed into whatever's convenient when he talks at the moment. Because there's been times where he's like, yeah, we're gonna vote on it, then it's gonna go to conservation for their feedback, then we're gonna go to planning board for their feedback, and then we'll have a council vote on it. Now I feel like it's gonna go to council, then we'll have planning board, we'll wait, now we're gonna back up one more step, we're gonna add, we'll let state weigh in on it, but we don't really care because it's already gonna go to council. And now where's conservation? That wasn't even, the last 2 meetings, conservation wasn't even in there, to my knowledge, the way it sounded, that it wasn't even coming to us anymore.
I'll review it, but it's supposed to be from, I do have that information, I
Yeah.
have it typed up, it's a document in an email, I'll hunt it down if I haven't already put it on Google Drive. But it's supposed to go to Conservation and Planning Board for their input before it's approved by council, or
Yeah.
I think presented to council. And then also, I don't know if they've already submitted it to the state, but they need 90 days to review it at the state level.
Yeah.
If there's any changes to.
Not this document, has not gone to the state. It won't go to the state until after the planning board reviews it.
Okay, so,
Let's see, that maybe.
He did mention something that
There was
he
some
acknowledged.
discussion about going directly
Direct.
to the state and to the planning board simultaneously. But I'm not exactly sure the mechanics would fit, because basically I think the state has to have, can't really do their full 90-day scrutiny without, with something that may be changed after it gets back. So
That's right.
I don't know, I think there's a lot of mechanics there that we don't know about.
I really want to get like Stephanie Gilbert to come in on one of our meetings or something, talk to us and say.
But I
Because
think,
representing the state
I
stuff,
think,
we
I
can
think,
tell her straight out, here we are, the citizens of Auburn, and our own conservation isn't quite on board yet.
one thing I kind of had, so this is from, I think, the December meeting, where there were all these ideas about bringing Stephanie Gilbert in and some other estate reps, I'd love to do, like, an open panel kind of presentation with the state, have someone from agriculture, so probably
Mhm.
Stephanie Gilbert, maybe have someone from, like, Maine NERPA, the Natural Resource Protection Act, like, that would be DEP, and then, you know, maybe someone from a conservation commission
Or
perspective,
USDA soil and water and
or
stuff,
USDA
yeah.
soil and water. I'd like to have basically a 3-person panel where they, you know, present some information, and there's like an open question and answer period, that can be like super specific or generalized, that would be open to the public, just so that everyone kind of has an idea of like, how do these zoning changes impact the resources that are in our city, how does that impact us short-term, long-term, all that kind of stuff. I would hope that it wouldn't be too late to do that this spring or something, in terms of what's going on with the MBGARP, but I would just like to have open access to education where people can come and get their questions answered, and, you know, hopefully it would be before anything has officially changed, but I don't know if there's time for that.
I would love to see us try to do that. And there's something at the senior center, March 12th, right?
It's the
From
food
8
access conference.
8 to 12, yeah, and so there's gonna be people from agriculture talking about utilization of land and helping and assisting farmers and resources for them and all that kind of stuff, growing local and yada yada. There'll be a lot of brainstorming at that. I think it's the 12th, right? March
I
12th.
believe so, yeah.
That sounds
The
familiar.
bottom line is that this is being pushed through at a very rapid rate.
But there's a lot of moving parts throughout the city where this is very relevant, right? We're talking about specifically food. How many of those people are gonna show up? How many people are interested? How many people are interested in changing the
March
ordinance?
7th,
March 7th.
Good Food Council, 8 to 12.
There you go. I'm gonna try to go to that. I think it's on a Thursday.
But actually, you know, there would be an opportunity sometime during the 90-day time frame, when basically you could have a panel like that, and then the people that attended anyway can have that information before that, whenever it did go to the council.
I'd like to do it sometime in April, so it depends on when
That would be so timely.
the city of Auburn submits the latest document for that 90-day review. It depends on if they give us time to review the document before they do that, so I need to figure out exactly the timeline for the review of this document. But yeah, I would like to do it sometime in April. Again, have someone from agriculture, have someone from, you know, who's gonna be able to speak more to the natural resource side of things, and then, you know, one more representative, again, from maybe Josie from the conservation district.
It would include folks from the university system as well, cooperative extension.
They do a lot. Pretty good group.
And if we need 90 days for the state to at least review, let's say worst case scenario, and this starts moving forward Monday, which we don't even know yet, but worst case, we're looking at 3 months. So we have 3 months from like Monday, so we're getting towards the end of
March, April,
February.
May, and
So April would be perfect because it hasn't gone through that 90-day cycle yet. It'll be still in, and there'll be these other conferences and talks of agriculture, food, and all those things.
I would ask then, as homework for this group, if you could send me something that you would like to see from this panel, whether it's a question, a topic, or if they could provide a case study that you know of and go over that, basically anything you want to see as a result of this panel, that would help me, just because I want to make sure that we're coming to them with a formal proposal, an idea of what they would be doing here, and have, you know, make them comfortable coming and presenting, not just having it be kind of like a throw all of our questions at them unexpectedly. So, yeah, just send me your ideas before the next meeting, and I'll see if I can start coming up with
Well,
like a
two things
roster.
I think we should write down right now, 2 things that we keep talking about is the impact of residential in the agriculture. What would that be? If we want to look at one lot and hypothetically say we build a house here, what are the impacts? And 2 is agriculture, moving forward, agricultural impacts in small parcels. Okay, what is their probability of food production for a small lot? What is the probability of their longevity? Is this something that somebody gets this great idea, and then 5 years later, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna bail, I'm going to school to be a nurse. And now we have this house there.
Well, the other part of this is that they're talking about taking this large block of undeveloped land and potentially dividing it into 3 acres and up farms, forests. There are plenty of other parcels in our city where people can do that already. Just leaving this area to be.
Doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. Doesn't make any sense for the city of Auburn to do economic growth, to get people to live here, to care about the environment. It doesn't.
And I understand the challenges that are faced by the people in the zone who feel trapped and, you know, want to see a change, but that's not what this
But it's so
document
far
is
and
proposing.
few between, we're really talking about like 8 or 12 people at max.
And it feels
No
like what
one's
this
stuck
document
in
is.
that zone,
Yeah.
that's just it.
Yeah.
You're not stuck. You can put a for sale sign on it
And
and
sell
go.
it, yeah.
Right.
And also, it always seems to be presented that the people who are opposed to the new plan want everything to stay the same or the way
Thank
it
you
was
very
50
much.
years
But
ago.
that's what I'm trying to
And that's
say,
not the
yeah.
case. It seems almost everybody agrees that there are some reasonable changes that need to be made to.
Like Josie was saying,
To the
incremental
ordinance.
changes,
Yeah.
not all
All
of
in
it.
Make one
Exactly.
small.
Right.
We don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And it's such a large area and it covers so much of Auburn. It's just all over the place. Like,
Yeah.
it's so diverse. Every lot is so diverse. There's
For
just so
me,
much
even
going
if it is
on.
just 80 some odd parcels that, you know, will be impacted, the spread of that has
Of
significant.
the whole city be impacted.
Yes.
That whole 40% would be impacted.
Right, but also I'm concerned about habitat fragmentation, like,
Mhm.
in terms of, yeah, okay, maybe, you know, it's not as, we don't know the impact because that hasn't been presented to us, like you're saying, these impact projections. But two, even if it is a smaller number, but it's spread all over the zone, that could have equally significant impacts, we
Yeah,
just don't know.
that, you know, that's why I really think you really need projections from the standpoint of houses and where they will be located before you can have an intelligent discussion on the wildlife, wildlife habitat impact or basically the impact of all these different types of uses.
Yes.
You know, trails and wildlife,
Right.
and basically, you know, if there are houses shotgun all over,
Exactly.
and that will just totally change everything that this committee has an interest in.
Well, I
Clearly,
think
there were unintended consequences of the original
Mhm.
agriculture and resource protection zone ordinance, and we shouldn't do the same thing
Yeah,
again.
with
But
other.
in the opposite direction. Yeah.
So, I think those are a good couple of topics, to start maybe putting together the idea of a panel. Again, we don't have a budget, but if we do need to pay speakers, then that's something I'll have to find out, maybe it's a budget line item, or, you know, something along those lines. So I'll start figuring things out, just send me your ideas, some general stuff, some specific stuff that you would like to see, and we can put together an agenda and hopefully get out, this, and reach out to
And then we
some
can
sponsors.
advertise that, the Auburn Liz.
Yeah.
See if we
Does-
get, because we're
does
supposed to
this-
have 2 open public discussions, not public comment on a meeting. We have yet to even have one of
Oh,
those.
public information.
The other thing is they've come up with some brilliant, people have really been collaborating, brilliant alternatives on how to inch forward in changing that ordinance without doing the all or nothing. Such as, oh, well, we can have temporary housing and allow them to establish a farm and we give them 3 years, and if they haven't established a farm within 3 years or something, then they have to move the temporary home. If they have, then they can build a permanent home. So there's been all these things and none of that gets up into these meetings, you know? Or instead of, what was it, 1,000, instead it was something like, instead of 50% of your income, why don't we try 20% or even 40 or something and inch our way in that way? Or leave the acreage as 10 and make an exception here and there, but each exception has to be well thought out. The landowner needs to have all their little bells and whistles and why and all this, and planning would have time, and, or the agricultural committee, so they can strategically review that one parcel at a time and make exceptions, versus looking at the whole thing is, I think that's the biggest problem, is looking at this whole dig.
And that's something too where we can, you know, this hypothetical panel that we want to put together, you know, create some ideas and present that to them and ask, you know, are there other examples of this, is it feasible, and stuff like that, just to kind of get more support and a better idea and have the state kind of looking on it. So I like this idea, I really do. I'm gonna get moving on it so we can get it in before that
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, but before we move on, does this group want to authorize John to somehow convey your feelings or the feelings of the Conservation Commission? Because basically, as a group, you certainly have both a right and will carry a lot more weight than any of us individually.
I mean, I can try again, but I've not received any notice of receipt.
But if we have a hard copy of the fact that you tried,
Yeah, so like,
That's
you're
all we
willing to
need.
do it. You want to.
And we were supposed to be included as, to have somewhat of a voice in this
As a bona
process.
fide board of the city.
Yes, and this process has been pretty slipshod and undemocratic. I mean, it sounds like on Monday, something's being presented as the product of a group that never voted on it. And, yeah, I mean, we should be able to make our voices heard.
you know, and
Sort of going backwards.
if you're
Totally
interested in
going backwards.
protections or that sort of thing, you know, just say that you know, but if you do make that statement, why provide the rationale why we need the information.
Yeah.
And basically, if we have hard copy, it would be an asset.
Was it a year ago we had a speaker, was it a year ago we had a speaker that came that
Yeah.
worked at Wells and Agunquit on the
Yeah.
Conservation Committee?
He was a former professor of mine, yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking about, I mean, this time with the committee, not so much, but you know, what the committee were doing and what, and the resources they got, and they were doing all kinds of stuff. They bought like, I can't remember how many acres of land for the brown-tailed rabbit, and they put bushes out there, so they went.
Bobtails.
I mean, it just blew my mind on what they were doing.
Mhm.
But it seems like in Auburn, we're just kind of like stuck in this. That we
Yeah.
can't, we
I
don't,
mean,
can't
they've been
support.
around for 30 years, but they did start doing that really early. They had established a land bank that was approved by the city, or the town of Wells, that basically they got this little honeypot that was dedicated to buying land for conservation purposes. And I mean, they're definitely an example to look up to, which is why I had, you know, Professor Grumbling come and present so that we could have an idea of what exactly we're capable of doing. I think we're kind of, I mean, we're going on now 4 years old. I think we've, you know, done a great job and really put ourselves out there, which is why I get frustrated when I don't get responses from things that we send on official letterhead, you know, letters of concern. But we are trying, but there's definitely, I wouldn't say resistance, but we're not really being, I feel like, you know, taken seriously when we submit these things.
I feel like there's some cities out there, you can look at them, there's some cities that have just really done a great job with their resources around. I think Bangor is a good example of what they've done. But I just think that in Auburn, it's just like, I don't know, like we're just stuck in this mode, and we don't seem to want to move forward, or there's, you know, we're sliding backwards, we don't want to move forward. But the combination of all. I mean, it's not just a comment, I mean, there's no real answer to it, but it's just frustrating to be in a city that's, you know, democratic, and have a vote, and have all these concerns and stuff, and it's just not going.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
not
we all
going
come here,
anywhere.
we put our time in, and, you know, I know this Conservation Commission has made a lot of really great suggestions, and some of the things we've done have been supported. I don't want to give off that impression, but for me, I just, you know, I want to be considered and, you know, have some forethought and have responses when we send stuff, but I think it's just a matter of continuing to throw ourselves in the spotlight, put ourselves on boards where we can, and really just continue to voice our opinion and make sure that we are being heard, you know, when we don't get responses and stuff. I mean, we have had some support, but not.
For my part, I was really excited to be on this board initially. I think there's a lot of opportunity for progressive growth in this city with the regards to agriculture. I think we could be at the forefront of conservation and forestry. I really do, but we're not going to be there with this bit of document that has been created. We're just not.
And my hopes is that by getting this panel put together and really making sure, I mean, I'm gonna like force all my family members to come to this thing, is just getting people involved in it, because there's, I mean, even as someone who's a chair of this board, there's so much that goes on that's relevant, but I can't make it to, or I can't prioritize, and there's so much going on that we don't get to see or be part of, so if we can get, you know, the people who this is gonna impact knowledgeable and involved and passionate about it, I think that's gonna make the biggest difference, because we've all done what we can to voice our concerns, which have been, you know, set aside. So it's really just gonna be getting the people, the amount of people that we need to care about this, present themselves. Not that there aren't a lot already, but I think we just need more people.
I think one of the things that's really surprising and rare is that Auburn took a step that was unpopular at the time and basically set aside a major portion of the city for open space. Every other city didn't do that and now wishes they had.
Right.
And we're in a position of throwing it away and copying the others. And you could ask yourself, which is the success policy and which is the failed one?
Well, thank you everyone for your input on that. I can submit another letter of concern. Maybe I'll print it off and drop it off in person or something, you know. So that, are we all set to move on from that? So they've voiced it.
Yeah.
Thank you again. So that leaves our new business and commissioner comments. So there are 3 of us up for reappointment. Our applications are due by March 4th, 2019. If you want to stay on board, that is myself, Ben, and John. So I think it's just the form that's on the city webpage right now for volunteers.
I would hope that all 3 would be volunteers, because basically I feel you're very valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I will be reapplying. And lastly, I had kind of touched on this earlier, I'd really like to, maybe we don't start on it right away, but maybe at least this fall, start creating an idea of a strategic plan to help guide us in what our primary objectives are. Some more loosely defined general objectives, maybe some other SMART goals that we can incorporate in there, establishing things like a communications either plan or work group where we can have proactive communication. We just, you know, pump out fun facts, upcoming events, or, you know, what other relevant information through Liz and their social media pages, and get people engaged. And I'd also, one thing that I kind of, it's been on my mind for a little while, but it's been hard to establish. I want to get to a point where we invite at least one person from a different city department or group to each one of our meetings, and just start building relationships, because that's going to be huge for us in getting, you know, being taken seriously and being notified ahead of time. And just, you know, it's as much on us as it is on them to establish that communication and relationship. So if we can start regularly inviting people to our meetings just to sit in, or, you know, creating a certain topic where, you know, hey, we're going to talk about parks this time, and we can invite Sabrina, or we're going to talk about planning and zoning, and invite someone from there.
Which we did basically really at the outset of this commission, and had pretty much every single meeting, there would be someone to come in. But we've actually lapsed on that because we got busy on other things. So I think it's very appropriate that we resume that practice.
I think so too. And I'd also, one thing I'm trying to do, so last year we had our guest speaker, Professor Grumbling. I want to do basically one event a year hosted by the Conservation Commission, so this year will be the panel. And then, you know, just some kind of event, like the way the, you know, Forest Board did the workshop last year. I just want to do one event a year where we host something and invite all members of the
And do
community.
really well and advertise really well.
Yeah.
But also, when we have the date group, I would hope we'd have a major turnout, because I think, you know, not only, I think it'll be very informative. And I think really an asset to Conservation Commission, that basically they established that link with Bates. And it's my understanding that Bates would have an interest in maybe subsequent additional similar projects in the next year or two.
So I do. One, I don't want to forget, we have Arbor Day Week that we missed the buck on last year. Forest Board does stuff, but did we want to do anything? And then two was, we talked about, this is the year of the salmon for the anniversary of Auburn. And did conservation want to do something about that? Because we had brought this up a couple times about doing a river event.
Right.
You know, I think conservation should do something.
I think we should too, and I'd love to do a river day. I don't know if it's too late to hop on the bandwagon for the 150th anniversary thing and join
I
that
don't think
in.
it's too late at all.
They're desperate.
And they're looking for
I'd like to do it
ideas.
in like beginning of September, because
Yeah.
that coincides with.
Or August.
I know I personally would be better in September. I just got a lot going on in August, and it's also still field season for work. I mean, it is in September too, but it'd probably be better for me to do September, like early September or something. But yeah, and I think the first year or two they paired it with the art walks that were going on throughout the summer to kind of just build up as much as they could. If we want to do something for Arbor Day, if I'm planning this panel, that's probably gonna, constitute a lot of my time, so I would need someone else to champion the Arbor Day week events and planning that, so if anyone wants to.
I
support,
can
that's
work
fine.
too, and we can talk with Rick on
Yeah.
Thursday and see if we can get some help with Forest Board as well. See what
Okay.
they're doing, what we're planning on doing, and what conservation can do in addition. Because I know, again, Arbor Day week is very successful for Forest Board, but there's such limited amounts of people. We tried to do something every single day of the week, but you're looking at 4 people, so it's just double duty all week. And maybe that's where conservation can pick up one day and do something really well, like a good idea. Or we can all do some community event or something.
I like that.
We are supposed to be having the Auburn Farmers Market again this year, so, presents at that,
Yeah.
giving out seedlings or whatever
Yeah.
you guys might
Yeah,
have for the Arbor Day offerings. I don't know,
yeah.
but as far as I know, we're going to be having the farmers market, so just give me a shout.
On Tuesdays still, you think?
Tuesdays, yep, 4 to 7.
That's a great idea, Kathy.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn? We there yet? Second.
All in favor?
Thank you guys very much for having me come and sit,
Thank you.
and I may even take out papers for conservation. I don't know.
You know what?
Happy to have you.
May take out papers for conservation. I don't know.
There is.
And also, don't forget, please, that we are doing our Wednesday evening gatherings. I think tomorrow's gonna be